Welcome back to my channel, guys. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about specific tips for each of your core classes that you can use for studying to get straight A's in your classes. I did make a part 1 to this, so if you want to go watch that, I give more general tips on how to keep yourself organized and get straight A's in school. I just wanted to start out by saying that I have kind of like a photographic memory. So like if I look at something for long enough, I can like kind of figure out and like memorize what it looks like or like what it says, and so that helps me to like memorize things word for word because I can kind of like see it in my head. I'm not the type of person that can hear something once and like remember it like off the top of my head. I have to really study things. Usually when I hear something for the first time, I don't really learn it, so then later down the road when I'm like studying for the test, I really do have to focus and like study that because the first time I really did not get it. So the first core class that I'm going to talk about is science. So technically my core science class is physics this year, but since physics is more like math based, I am also taking AP Bio, so I'm going to go through like the AP Bio, how I study and get straight A's on those tests, because it is definitely a lot different from AP Physics. For each unit, we have like a bunch of notes. So this is like the genetics unit. We have literally like so many notes for genetics. When my teacher announces that we're having a test, she pretty much says, she gives us like a page. I'll actually show you what it looks like, but it's kind of just a page on Word that says some things that might be on the test, but it's kind of like, she pretty much says, any notes, any labs, anything pretty much that we did in this unit is fair game for the test. So pretty much it's not like a guide that you get where it's like, oh, here's a question and it's multiple choice and the answer is B and that's exactly what it's going to be on the test. It's not like that at all if you're in an AP class. So this is kind of what it looks like, and I actually highlighted it later. This is what it'll say. It'll say notes, chromosomes. And that's it. So like in my notes, I'll write down the notes that we had for chromosomes. For example, I have like a totally new section that says tests on heredity. And so for the notes for chromosomes, I literally copied all of the notes that we had for chromosomes. And then like going down the list, it's the same thing. Notes, dihybrid crosses. So pretty much I just go through this whole thing and I go through all of the lessons that we did and all of the assignments that we did, and I copy down every single thing that we do in the class. And it does seem a little redundant and a little extra to like literally write down every single thing, but when you're in an AP class and in college classes, this is what it's going to look like, and you have to literally write down everything because they could give you anything on the test, and most of the time they do cover a very broad spectrum on the test, so you just need to make sure that you know everything on the test. And it's easy. I'll help you like get into it when we go further into it. But when I'm done and have the notes for one section complete and written down, then I just highlight it so that I know that I already completed that. We use It's Learning for virtual learning right now. So this is kind of what each of the like topics, so like each date we have a different plan, and then when you click, this is very difficult, when you click on this, it kind of shows you like everything that is planned for that day. And so pretty much I just go down this whole list and I go through each date that we had in this unit, and if there's notes or activities or things that we did, I literally write all of them down. So the first step is to rewrite all of your notes, and this really helps to kind of like organize everything and get everything put together in one spot so that you're studying from one area instead of a bunch of different places. And another tip for doing this is make sure that you take your time when you are writing all of your notes, because if you take the time to really absorb the information as you're writing it down, maybe like speaking it out as you're writing it, then that will help you way more down the road when you're going back and studying this content, because you're already going to have like a minimum like spectrum of what the content is about. So then the next thing that I do after I write everything down is I start to actually study my notes. So what I do for this is I literally read out all of my notes. So for example, I would say gametes, an organism's reproductive cells, sperm and egg. So I would literally read all of my notes, and as I'm reading them and going down the list of everything, if I don't think I'm going to remember something, then I write it down a couple times. So like if it's a definition, let's go to a definition, polygenic inheritance. So if I don't think that I'm going to remember that definition, I'm going to write it down like 3 times and then like read it out loud and really focus on the words that I'm like saying. And then I'm going to quiz myself. So I'll cover it up and I'll try to like recall it in my memory and say it like word for word. Not necessarily word for word, but like getting like the key concept of what it is. So then after I get it right, like if I don't get it right, then I'm going to continue that process of writing it multiple times and then speaking it out until I get it. And once I get it, then I move on to the next thing. Another thing that you can do is kind of break down the words. So like an example of this is, one of my definitions is codominance. So I kind of break that down into 2 parts, because most of the time the word represents what it actually means. So like for example, co usually means like 2 or like multiple. And then dominance, that means that the trait is dominant. So that helps me remember codominance means that more than one allele is dominant. So if you break the word down and kind of like think of something that will help you remember it, that's going to help way more. And also another thing is just like coming up with ways that you're going to remember it. So like it's kind of the same thing but a little bit different. So I have 3 words that start with the letter P. There's polyploidy, and then polygenic, and pleiotropy. So I don't know if I said that right, but anyway. So polyploidy is when a cell or an organism has an extra set of chromosomes. So how I remember this is because there's 2 P's in polyploidy. So since there's 2 P's, there's going to be 2 sets of chromosomes. So that's one way. And then for polygenic, poly kind of means more, and then genetic is like genes, so 2 genes. And then pleiotropy, this is kind of just like the outlier, so like I kind of just remember it that way, that that's the one that like doesn't have a specific thing that I need to like remember. And then last but not least, for AP Bio, once I think I'm like in the clear and I like know most of the things, I usually give my mom my notebook and she quizzes me on literally everything that I need to know. And this helps me realize what I actually know and what I need to continue studying. So usually when she quizzes me, I get a lot right, but if I get a question wrong, then again, I take my paper, and if I get a question wrong, I continue to write it down a couple times so that it sticks with me a little bit more. And if I realize that there are things that I'm like really struggling with to like remember, I literally look at them before the test and like repeat them several times before the test, just so that they're fresh inside my mind, so that when I go to take the test, I'm going to know what it is. It's a couple days later. Sorry, my hair looks a mess today. It's been looking really wacky lately. But I'm currently studying for my bio exam that's tomorrow, and I wanted to add some things that I've been like noticing. It's really important that you have a strong mindset while you're studying, because for example, I was looking through my notes and there was one definition that I did not know at all, and I was like, well, I hope she doesn't put it on the test. But instead of having that mindset that like, oh, I'm praying that she won't put it on the test, keep studying it until you get it right. So literally, I've been sitting here and I have been writing this definition. It's 3 different definitions, but I have literally copied it over and over and over again and repeated it in my head until I get it right. And I also wanted to say that instead of being like, oh, like once I see that definition on the test and like I see it, I'll know what to like think of. I've done this a couple times. I've been like, oh, like I might not know it word for word now, but when I see it on the test, I'll know what it is. And this leads to a little bit of confusion, because sometimes when I do this, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll remember that, and then I see it and I'm like, crap, is that the definition for this one, or is that the definition for this one? And it does get a little confusing. So honestly, a tip for that is to literally just study it and study it and study it until you can get the definition word for word and get it right every single time. And that way, when you see it on the test, you'll be 100% positive that that's the answer, and there won't be any like, oh, is it like this one, and like questioning yourself, because you want to make sure that you know the content well enough so you're like, okay, if she puts that on the test, like, I'm gonna know it. Those are my tips for AP Bio. And then moving on to the next subject is physics. So how my AP physics teacher does it is we work off of OneNote, and pretty much for each unit we have like each lesson here. And so for each lesson we have like a bunch of different like problems that we have to do. So for example, she'll give us like a bunch of worksheets, and like when it comes time to study for the test, I will write on a sheet of paper just like this, and I'll write lesson 37, question 1 through 5. And like I'll do this for each lesson and write down the different questions that is on it. And she also usually gives us like an assignment on College Board, a multiple choice section, and then like a free response essay question. And those two things I usually study more because those are more revolving around like bringing all of the concepts together. So yeah, I'll write down literally all of the questions, not necessarily the questions specifically, but like lesson 42, worksheet 2, numbers 1 through 15. And when I go to study them, I'll just like go to this on the internet, and I'll just like go through each of the questions and redo them and make sure that I'm getting the right answer. And then once I get the right answer for that question, then I check it off of the box. And I continue to go down through all of the worksheets until I'm completely done. And then I look back at my paper and I kind of like see which ones I still like need help with and need to do. And then I continue to go down and check the ones off until all of the questions I get right. Again, this is really about repetition, like especially in math and like physics, doing the questions over and over again is the only way that you're going to like understand and get to know like the problem and be able to do it on the test. Because if you don't repeatedly do the same thing over and over again, then it's not going to stick with you, and you're not going to have like the variety of knowing how to do a bunch of different problems. I actually got this idea from like someone else's YouTube video because I honestly had no idea how to study for physics. But I will link that video down below if you want some more like specific examples of like what I mean by that. And then moving on to math, this is also kind of like the same thing. So like in pre-calc, which is what I'm taking right now, I'll just literally redo the problem, rewrite them and redo them. It's literally repetition, I'm telling you, for every single subject. Repetition is the key. If you continue to redo everything and like do them multiple times, then I promise you, you will be successful. You will see a huge difference after you repeat them multiple times, because you're going to notice that you're going to be able to like do more and like learn more from doing that. So an example of this is my teacher for pre-calc usually gives us a study guide of questions that are most likely going to be on the test. So I literally go through the study guide and I do all of the problems until I am 100% sure that I know how to do all of the problems. So yeah, not much to see. You just look at the study guide and then continue to redo the problems until you're 100% positive that you are going to ace your test. And to give you kind of like some reference of how I'm doing on my tests from doing these things, the last AP Bio test, I got a 100% on the multiple choice. I didn't do as well on the free response questions just because it was the first test and I like wasn't sure what to expect. And then I also got a 100% on that test, which like is bizarre because for like math, because I had no idea what I was doing. The next topic that I wanted to talk about is history. So this one, again, make sure that you have a lot of notes, like make sure that you're taking notes in class, because those are the notes that you're going to have to like look back at when you're like going to study for the test. A great resource for learning history content is flashcards or Quizlet. Personally, my teacher used to make Quizlets for us, and those are so helpful. If you go onto the Learn tab on Quizlet, like if you go to a Quizlet and then like you scroll down, there's going to be like Learn, flashcards, like Quiz Me, a bunch of different things. And if you go to Learn, then you will actually like learn the content instead of just like doing flashcards, because I feel like flashcards aren't really like as effective of actually like learning it on Quizlet. Another thing is reading notes out loud and like rewriting notes. If you think about it and like really focus on what you're writing and like kind of like read it out loud as you're writing it, I promise you it will stick with you. So this is my notebook from World History. So you can obviously see like it looks very like colorful and bright. So I just pretty much highlighted the different like concepts. So this was like the main idea. So I highlighted that in pink, and then the bullets underneath of that were in yellow. And I just like highlighted like specific keywords that I needed to know. And then the same for down here. So literally as I would like study my notes, I would look at this and then take a separate sheet of paper and literally write word for word while I was like saying it. And like doing this also helps my brain to like see what it looks like and kind of like remember that for the test. And I actually recorded some of my like study tips that I did for the AP exam. I actually got a 5 on the AP exam, which like I was not expecting that at all. But I actually started studying for the AP World History exam like a month before the test. And I would do like the like College Board videos and like do a bunch of like written responses and stuff. And that really helped me. So if you guys are interested in like getting more help for the AP World exam, I have a couple TikToks on my account about how I prepared for that. And they will be linked in the description box below. And last but not least, the last core class is obviously English. And English is a little different because I feel like it is kind of difficult to study for English. It's really about like developing the skills to like write essays and like memorize things about a specific book. I used to be really bad with like analyzing books, like for like especially quizzes on like books like about character analysis and whatnot. I was like, I have no idea, like I just know what happened in the book, like I don't know what the characters are looking like. So the first tip that I have for you is to actually read the book. This is the biggest one, because a lot of people don't read the book and then go on like Cliff Notes or whatever and then expect to get 100. Like, no, that's not how it works. And honestly, good for you if you can read Cliff Notes and get 100 on the quizzes, but that just doesn't work for me. If you have to, take notes or like sticky note or like highlight or whatever. Don't highlight if it's not your book, but either sticky notes or like writing like little notes on the side of it or something, and kind of like thinking of concepts that might be quiz questions. I know when I like wrote down specific things about a book and then looked at them right before taking a quiz, it kind of helped like refresh my brain about what the characters are supposed to look like and all of that. While you're reading the book, you can also listen to like chapter summaries or like chapter analysis. Those really helped me to like learn the context, because usually when they do like a chapter analysis, they go into really like great detail about what the chapter was about and like key things like symbolism and stuff like that, which is normally things that you're going to be talking about in your English class. And just for reference, I am in AP English, so these are definitely key things that you need for AP English. I'm not really sure about like regular English, but they are very helpful tips. Another thing is watching book summaries. So like also like once you're done the book, watching a book summary. The only thing about that is usually they just give like the broad spectrum of what happened in the book instead of like the chapter analysis, which usually gives you like specific details on each chapter. Personally, I think it helps more when you do the chapter analysis, but if you're kind of like running out of time, the book summaries are also very helpful. And then the next topic, unrelated to reading, is kind of like essays. So I really think that with essays, it really is about, like, again, repetition. Like, the more essays you write, the better your skills are going to be, like, developed. So don't feel pressured to, like, be perfect when you write your first essay, because that's what teachers are going to help you do. Like, as you advance in school, in your English classes, you are going to build up those skills. But some tips for writing essays, which the first thing would be to do a graphic organizer. So like write your thesis or your claim ahead of time in a graphic organizer. Write down the evidence that you're going to use and your different points that you're going to use, and your commentary. So like why your evidence relates to your claim. If you do this organizer, I promise you your essay will like literally take way less time than usual. I remember in sophomore year, I wrote an essay and it took me 4 hours to write this essay. And I was like, what the heck? Like, this should not take this long. But then in AP English this year, my junior year, my teacher made us do a graphic organizer beforehand and write all of that stuff in the graphic organizer. And it took me an hour to write the essay. So I was like, this is insane. Like, the time that you save and kind of knowing everything before you go into the essay helps a tremendous amount. Also, make sure you're looking at rubrics ahead of time and like when you first start the essay and also when you are finished the essay, because normally if you just look at it the first time and write the essay, then by the time you're done the essay, you're going to have forgotten things that are needed to be included in the essay. And usually when I read through the rubric a second time, I'm like, oh crap, like I forgot to do that or whatever. I have watched some presentations from students in my class or like read essays from them, and I'm like, they clearly didn't like look at the rubric, because I feel like if people looked at the rubric, they would get a way better grade than they actually do. And most of the time, it's just little things. Like, if you pick up on the little things that you missed in the rubric, then you're going to get a way higher grade. And that also leaves room for if you actually did mess up on something, then you're not going to get extra points off for the things that you didn't miss in the rubric. I hope that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is like, if you do the best that you can and get all of the requirements from the rubric, then if you get points off for like grammar or whatever, then your grade is still going to be higher than if you didn't look at the rubric for a second time. And last but not least, before you like turn in your essay, make sure that you read it out loud so that you make sure that it flows really nicely and you're putting commas in places that commas need to be. And it just really helps you to realize that like, oh crap, like this sounds weird or like whatever. Usually when I do this, I like find so many mistakes, and make sure you continue to read it out loud multiple times until you don't find any more mistakes. So like, for example, I'll read through an essay, I'll find like 5 mistakes, then I'll read through it again. If I find like 2 mistakes, then I read through it again. And if I find 1 mistake, even 1 mistake, then I'll read through it again until it's completely like good and decent, because like your 1 mistake that you made could be like significant, and if you read through it again, then you might find a different mistake that you missed the first time. And also, I recommend finishing the essay like a day before and like making sure that everything is good, and then the next day come back to it and like reread it again, because normally if you sit in front of a computer for a long time reading an essay, your mind kind of wanders and you're kind of like used to what it sounds like. So then if you come back the next day, you're like refocused and you hadn't looked at it for a whole day, so then you can really like focus on it and like see what you missed the day before. Those are all of the tips that I have for you guys. I hope that this helped you a lot, and I hope that you apply some of these. It's not going to come overnight, but if you start implementing these into your study schedule, I promise you, you will get a lot better grades in high school, and that will definitely help you like in college, especially like when you're studying for tests in college. It's definitely going to prepare you. See you in my next video, guys. Have a blessed day.